Watching the world burn, watching the world burn, July 27th, 2023. And have I got a special video for you today? Yes, the doctor came back with the all clear. So that's got me all pumped up to make one hell of a video. So we're going to get into a lot of things in this video. Hopefully it won't be too long to go up on Twitter. You do have a maximum length there. And I know your attention span is only 2 minutes, but you're going to have to watch the whole video to want to know what's going on in the world today. The world burning, baby. Alright, so let's get to the first clip. I thought this was very interesting. I think these drills might be over, but I got some great footage of the Chinese Navy and the Russian Navy conducting drills together. What is it, right off of the coast of China there? Let's watch that. This is Russia and China conducting some naval military drills. Yeah, we want to fight the whole world here in the United States. That's for damn sure. Should be interesting. You're not going up clubbing baby seals no more. You want to fight the whole world, this is what you're going to go up against. More footage of the Russians and the Chinese conducting naval fire exercises. Yeah, you're not clubbing baby seals no more. Here's some more naval footage now that there's a blockade in the Black Sea. I hear a lot of people, they're saying, oh yeah, we'll just send in a couple ships and blow the hell out of the Russian Navy. Well, let's be kind of what you're up against.
Вариант 2. Корабельном вооружении.
Woo! Wasn't that good to see the Russians and the Chinese working together? I wonder what's going to happen when the U.S. Empire Fleet wants to fight both Chinese Navy and the Russian Navy. By the way, if you didn't know, the Chinese are building more ships by far than the United. I think they have more ships at this point than the United States Navy. So it would be one hell of a battle, but I don't think it's be that bad because the Chinese have hypersonic missiles that will take out those U.S. ships. Let's get to a just on a different off of war note. One video I found very interesting was, I don't know if you knew, but Lukashenko from Belarus, the president there, he visited with Putin, and I found some good footage on that. And I was all about watching the meeting, and we're going to get to that later in the video, but I wanted to kind of show you, most people want to demonize Russia as this just militaristic nation that's just this barren wasteland. This is Putin and Lukashenko just walking through a museum in Russia. Now, if it gets a bit choppy, I'm going to cut out all the places where in the video there's, not much going on because it's translated. And so it might chop through, but I got to keep the length of this video short. Let's watch it. Everybody thinks Russia is just this hugely barbaric country. I don't know, I just found this footage. This would be a place that I would like to visit. Listen to this. This sounds pretty cool. Wouldn't this be a lot of fun for you kids?
This is an area that, as has to do with communication. There's going to be an interactive game that visitors can play here. And the museum opens on July 30th, so in just a week.
Yeah, I don't know if you've been to the Henry Ford Museum up in Michigan.
So, again, there is an interactive zone here where you can explore the information about some of the largest naval battles. This section has to do with the fortifications in Kronstadt, the first submarine.
Look at that, isn't that cool?
So this is where this section leads to the second floor. We're not going to go there today. Is the second floor equipped the same way? It's even better.
Look at the graphics. Isn't that cool? I do love the security walking behind them, though. Look at all them guys. It's good to be king, huh? Him and Lukashenko getting out, just touring the museum. Look at that museum. Anyway, that's it. There's a lot more to the video. Woo! Wasn't that interesting? Boy, that looks like... Wouldn't you love to visit that? I love museums, man. I love the Smithsonian here in the United States, and I've certainly visited a lot of the Civil War museums. I mean, I did not even know that during the Civil War, because I grew up in Virginia, and we studied Robert E. Lee and Stonewall Jackson, but there was a whole different war that took place down in Tennessee and along those corridors, and there's all kinds of museums in that area. And I visited a few of them, and it was like, wow. And then I come to Florida, and we got museums here. I mean, the Civil War in the United States was everywhere. This is another video that's going to be chopped up. This is Putin and Lukashenko talking about just things in general. The most interesting part of this was when Lukashenko goes, you know, Wagner, I'm having a hard time controlling them. They want to go down and fight Poland. Watch the video. Here you go. So this is just a little bit of Putin and Lukashenko getting together. The reason I wanted to play this clip was because Lukashenko was talking about the Wagner troops. They're chomping at the bit to go west and invade Poland. I don't know if that's just for real or not, but that was a huge conversation that they had. And he says he's having a hard time keeping them under wraps there in Belarus. But anyway, let's just watch just a couple minutes of this. I thought this was very interesting.
So we agreed quite some time ago. So we meet in Saint Petersburg. The weather is great. It's Sunday. We always have things to discuss, but before we begin, I'd like to say that all of our plans are being carried out at a better, quicker pace than we expected. And I'd like to note that the economy of both Russia and Belarus are in a very good state. In Belarus, according to the latest data, we expect a 3.7% growth of the economy. This is the estimate. In Russia, the estimate is a bit lower, but still good enough. I know that Belarus has 0.4 deficit, which is very low. International reserves and currency reserves are a very good level. Employment is a very good level. So all of the indicators show that this year will be a productive one, and we will see very good growth indicators going forward. All of the plans that we've agreed upon as part of the Union state are being carried out. Trade is growing, is expanding. In dollars, the trade, according to Belarusian statistics, it's $45 billion worth of trade. This is a very good indicator. The nuclear power plant has produced over 17 gigawatts already. The second unit will be operational later this year. So everything is going very smoothly. At the very least, it's satisfactory. So today we're going to discuss security in the region, and I hope that today and tomorrow we will have a chance to discuss all of that in an informal environment. So welcome. Thank you, President Putin. You covered the economic aspects of our relations, and I'd like to speak about something else as well. I know that, well, the economy is doing great, and that's true. I'd like to talk about what the Ukrainian armed forces are doing. I know that yesterday was a difficult day. I know that over 15 Leopard tanks have been destroyed. Ukrainian tanks have been destroyed. So foreign tanks, foreign-made tanks. Yes, we had Ukrainian units that were deployed that consisted entirely of foreign Western-made equipment. Yes, and a lot of that equipment had been destroyed. In fact, I used to be, when I was a serviceman, I used to work with military equipment, and I know what it's like, what it means to destroy so many tanks, so many equipment. And I know that at least 26,000 have been lost by Ukraine since the start of the operation, and it's even more than that. And yes, it's more than that now. Well, yesterday shows that the war is actually being fought against the entire NATO. We know that there are many mercenaries fighting on the Ukrainian side, and they are already engaging strategic reserves to fight for them. So this mindless policy of throwing unprepared, untrained people and mercenaries into the meat grinder, this will not lead to anything good. There is no counteroffensive. Well, there is a counteroffensive, but it failed. Indeed, it has failed. But what next? Like you mentioned recently, they're trying to get Poland involved as well. They're getting mercenaries involved. I know that Polish forces have been drawn closer to the borders of the Union state. In fact, there has been one Polish brigade only 40 kilometers away from Brest, of the town of Brest, and 100 kilometers away from Grodno. There's been a division deployed there as well. I know that the Poles are setting up camps to help Ukrainians repair the Leopard tanks. And I know that Western equipment is being sent to Poland and then sent to Ukraine. So there's one thing I'd like you to draw your attention to. You spoke about that at the Security Council session. Well, Poland is trying to help Ukraine get into NATO step by step. So Western Ukraine and Western Belarus, well, rather Poland, they're trying to grab a part of Ukraine, the western part of Ukraine, and place it under NATO control. So they want to divide Ukraine and make Western Ukraine part of Poland. So this is the payment that Ukraine has to make for Poland's involvement in the conflict. In fact, we've seen that develop, and these discussions take place even 6 months ago. This is what they're planning: to dismember Ukraine and transfer part of its lands, the western part, to Poland. If the population of that part of Ukraine opposes that, we are going to support that. We're going to support them. If Western Ukraine asks us for help to oppose this dismemberment, we are going to help Ukraine. Yes, you're going to help Ukraine. Yes. If that happens, we're going to support them, because this is unacceptable, because we see pressure from the Baltic states, from the West, and now from the South as well. So the Union state will have to defend itself. An approach like that from the West would be unacceptable. Now, that's what I wanted to say about the security situation, about our security policy. And so I'd like to thank you for actually putting all of these matters into light. And one thing I could also tell you is that the Wagner mercenaries are urging us to let them go west. They said, we want to go to an exhibition or on a trip to Warsaw. I know that they know where the military equipment came from that they fought in Ukraine. Now they want to go west. I wouldn't want to let them. They know what is happening around the Union state, but we are going to, well, oppose that. As for the economy, like I said before, I'd like to ask you to make sure that our governments develop an economic development plan that would involve self-sufficiency. We don't want to depend on anyone. We have enough resources to develop, so we have to have a plan for the economic development of our two states, of the Union state. And so if our two governments come up with a plan like that, it would be a good thing. Even if you have to face some short-term difficulties, the people will understand, because going forward, that is the right decision. So,
woo! Wasn't that cool? Holy moly! I just love the part about Wagner. They're chomping at the bit to go kill the Poles. They want to kill the Poles. Anyway, I thought that was very interesting. Let's get off of the Ukraine war for just a minute, and let's look at what's going on in France right now. You probably didn't know, but there's been tremendous amount of riots taking place there. I do not know how long Macron is going to be able to stay in power. Now, he's supposed to be the president, I think, all the way up until I don't know how France works. What is it, 2027 or something like that? I don't see how he survives this, but let's just watch what's going on.
Has been laying out the directions he gave to prosecutors over the violent protests seen last month in the country. That's after it was revealed more than 700 people were handed jail sentences over the arrest.
I asked the prosecutor for a firm, systematic response, and whenever possible, I asked that the perpetrators be referred.
In an effort to deter further protests, those arrested were given so-called fast-track trials, with courts staying open 7 days a week to deal with the influx of cases. Nearly 1,300 verdicts have been handed down so far, with more than 95% of the accused convicted on charges ranging from vandalism to attacking police officers. The average age of those on trial is just 17. Well, while French government officials were quick to laud the fact order was eventually restored, some of those same voices have been quick to criticize Iran last year when authorities tried to bring nationwide protests there under control. French President Macron called for an international response to how Tehran dealt with the unrest, while other Elysée officials urged a wave of sanctions to target Iranian authorities. We got reaction from guests on the standards Paris applies to Tehran.
There is a great deal of hypocrisy here. In Iran, when police officers were being killed, the rioters were called heroes and peaceful protesters, but in France, where no police officers were killed, the protesters and the rioters were demonized, and the media was hostile towards them, the government was hostile towards them, and we see that they were treated the exact opposite. When in Iran people were arrested, Western media, Western governments condemned it, but in France, the Western media is silent, and no one in the West condemns it. But the interesting thing is that in Iran, all of the protesters, except for those who had committed crimes, such as those who murdered people, they've all been released. They had a general amnesty. But in France, the courts are working 7 days a week to put these people behind bars.
Important fact is that France has a problem with the protests, and it tries to crush them by showing force by showing that it is very determined to stop people from voicing their contempt of the behavior of the French police. But there is also another factor to these protests, to these convictions that have been handed out. One of them is the number of them, the number of cases that have been processed by the French court. 1,200 cases have been tried on the court, and out of them, more than 700 have been convicted of the crime. But the other thing is the fact that this rush shows that these 700 cases have not been carefully observed. And
okay, so that's what's going on in France. I thought you'd find that interesting. And the West, you know, your Western media doesn't tell you anything. And we're going to get into that at the end of the video, because I get a lot of comments now at Twitter. And they're talking about how I watch Russian television and I watch other news channels like out of India to get news. And I said, well, you know, you want to trust MSDNC or ABC or CBS or Fox News. Hey, all they do is lie, lie, and lie. And my point is, you know, you got to get your news from everywhere. So, and then try to disseminate through it and try to get to some sort of truth. And I'm going to tell you, I'm not sure that I arrive at the truth all the time, but I do try the best that I can. So oh, this was a, this was a great video. Garland Nixon was interviewing Jody Brar. I never heard of Jody Brar, but I think she might be the leader of the Communist Party in Great Britain. I never thought I'd find myself in agreement with a communist. Holy moly, let's watch that video.
And something that you've been talking about lately, you know, with your organization, the Anti-Imperialist Platform. And so I want to throw some questions at you, get some thoughts. A big one that I would like to get your take on is the Nordstrom attack. You know, what that says to you about the decay of imperialism, the decay of colonialism. Normally, you have, you know, the colonialist countries that go out to the global south or wherever. They use coercion, they use violence to get what they want. There seems to be a high level of desperation when this kind of action is turned inward to their own, you know, colonial subjects. Your thoughts on the importance of the and significance, I guess is a better word, of the Nordstrom attack for those of us who are pushing back against imperialism and colonialism?
Well, I see that you prioritize this message, Garland, because you're regularly wearing that cap when I see your videos. Yes, it's really interesting, isn't it, to see how allies will turn on one another in a situation of desperation. So the aim of sabotaging Nord Stream was a long-term aim. The Americans were always unhappy, always, with this rapprochement and this relationship between Germany and Russia. I think it started when it was still the Soviet Union, in fact, when they built the first Nord Stream, right? That was in the 80s. And it was seen in those days, the Europeans saw it as part of their soft power play, because the Soviet Union ideologically and economically was already in a process of decay and deterioration. And they were trying to help accelerate that with their friendly detente policy. It's also what they tried to do with China, right? That they would undermine the socialism of the Soviet Union by gradually turning these people into their friends and into a new bourgeois class and undermining the planned economy there, which was already in process in the Soviet Union, as I said. So in the Soviet Union, they were knocking at an open door. That Margaret Thatcher, I seem to recall, presented it as a great step forward in their plan to de-Sovietize Russia, or their hopes of de-Sovietizing Russia. And so the Nord Stream 1 set up this relationship between Europe and Russia, with which the USA was always profoundly uncomfortable. I mean, they have that phrase, don't they, that I can't remember who said it at the time, that NATO and the EU were being set up essentially as a framework for controlling, whilst revitalizing European imperialism, controlling it, keeping it under manners, as it were, in the US's kind of sphere of influence. And what did they say? It was all about keeping the Germans down, the Americans in, and the Russians out, right? And that's always been their main concern, because of course, if you create a Eurasian power by uniting the resources of Germany and Russia, you have a powerhouse that can compete directly with the USA.
Oh man, wasn't that amazing? And I was just like, holy shit, I guess maybe I'm a communist. I don't know. so then, Raul, today the conference started. I don't have any video from it. I haven't, because like I said, I was at the doctor's office all day. But I have video from yesterday, and this was the RT television interviewing the South African. It was a South African diplomat, and boy, I tell you, we want to talk about one sharp individual. She speaks English better than most people in the United States, and this is that interview. So let's watch that clip.
Well, I have the great privilege and honor to be joined today by Dr. Naledi Pandor, the Foreign Minister of South Africa, and you know, look, to have you here in the Venice of the North, in St. Petersburg here, for the second Russia-Africa summit. I know the last one was 2019, it happens every 4 years, but so much has changed in the past 4 years since the last summit. And here we are on the front lines of what is a burgeoning multipolar world. And Minister Pandor, I will get to that eventually at some point, but from all of us here at RT International, from all of us here, we are so grateful for your time that you're sitting down with us today. Thank you very much for joining us here. I wanted to ask you first and foremost, of course, it's the Africa Summit with Russia here in St. Petersburg, and I'm very glad that South Africa, of course, is being represented here, but why? What are your expectations for this summit, and what's the mission of South Africa for this?
Well, I suppose there are many strands to the expectation. Firstly, it is to continue the relationship that has been built up over many years between Africa and Russia. It's a very important relationship for us, particularly South Africa, given the role that the people of Russia played in our own struggle for freedom. So it's a relationship of brother and sister, of comrade and friend. And it's to continue that.
Yes.
Then the second would be to continue to establish strong bonds in advancing the development goals of the African continent, and to ensure that the commitment that Russia has both illustrated and expressed over many years continues to be given practical effect by the programs that we agree together and their actual execution. Then the third strand is, of course, people-to-people exchanges. We share much of an interest in the creative arts, in history, in a range of core policy areas, security, trade. So really looking at quite a wide spectrum of areas of partnership is really the rationale for our presence. And perhaps fourth and most important, and I'm really glad that President Putin has agreed to this, is to continue the discussions we began earlier this year about Africa playing a role in seeking a peaceful outcome to the current conflict between Russia and Ukraine. So I would anticipate that our leaders will use their presence here in St. Petersburg to continue that early discussion, which at the first flush was really to start talking between Africa, Russia, Africa and Ukraine, and hopefully now to start talking about next stages.
Minister, how did that go when the African delegation went to Kiev with the African Peace Initiative? As I understand, the leadership in Kiev wasn't entirely optimistic, but I wasn't there, I wasn't on the ground, but I know the African delegation pitched its peace proposal for the conflict in Ukraine. What were the reactions? What can you tell us?
Well, I think the lines of communication are open with both leaders. Both leaders are strong leaders. So I don't think it was just Ukraine that was tough. I think President Putin was tough as well. But what was very positive was the reception that the African leaders received, and an openness to listening to what they're presenting. And as I say, at this particular summit, a readiness to continue that discussion.
I see.
And that's extremely important, because remember that we're the first group of leaders who have this access to both leadership of Ukraine as well as of Russia. Others have created such an atmosphere of hostility. They can only speak to one and not the other.
That's right.
So I think Africa is in a unique position to play a very important role.
I think it is in a very unique position, especially with this burgeoning multipolar world as well. I've spoken to various people, heads of state from Africa, who have talked about the United Nations. It needs to be reformed.
Absolutely.
It's a bit outdated perhaps these days. African countries, it's only fair that they get equal representation at the United Nations, and there are calls for the UN to be reformed.
Yeah, wasn't that amazing? I tell you what, that was a great conversation, and I tell you what, you know, someday you always hope to meet people like that. I'd love to meet her someday in South Africa, but I have a hard time traveling. The last thing, well, as far as videos go, video clips, was, you know, I don't know if you knew, I've been talking about at Twitter how Russia is opening up multiple fronts in the campaign. We got Africa, okay, with the conference going on. So I'm pretty sure, and Russia's sending a lot of military and humanitarian aid to Africa. So that's one front that they're going to fight the U.S. empire on. Then you've got well, you got Belarus, and I can't remember the name of the town. What's the town in the north there that's Russian? Anyway, so you got a lot of troops up there. And by the way, Russia's talking about mobilizing 300,000 more troops. And most of them, I feel, are going to go to a new front in the war. There in Upper West Ukraine, assuming that the war lasts that long. I don't see it lasting that long, but we'll see. So, and then of course you got Wagner there. And then, well, what I'm getting to is this is another front to the war, because the Russian general Shoigu, he visited North Korea, and this is the welcome that he got. Check this out. I mean, look at the red carpet and everything. Oh my God. How many U.S. presidents or U.S. diplomats get treatment like this upon their visit to a country? God, wasn't that amazing? So that's pretty much it for the video. I hope it didn't get too long. I did want to go through. I'm going to kind of try to do this with all my videos now, because I'm getting a lot of comments now, and and of course I'd like to read some of my comments. And so here's one from me. I said, you have to give the Democrats credit. They are brazen with 85,000 new armed IRS agents to bleed the American people dry. Why do Democrat voters want this? You know, and that's a good question. If you're a Democrat, why do you tell me? Why do you want to give everything to the government? I don't understand that. It doesn't make any sense to me. And then this is one because if you don't watch Jackson Hinkle, he's on Rumble. Well, he's on YouTube for now. He demonetized. I don't expect him to be around on YouTube. They're going to censor him. But if you want to watch him, he's on Rumble, and he'd had a debate with Piers. What is Piers' last name? Anyway, Piers. Well, this is what I said. I said, "Good job, Jackson. I wish I had your mind to engage in a debate like this. You did well. The war started February 22nd, 2014 with Ukraine bombing the Donbass civilians. Isn't it symbolic that Russia decided to end this on February 24, 2022 when they invaded Ukraine? Almost the exact date of the United States-sponsored coup. I think the Azov Nazis will be defeated. And that was just, boy, I tell you, that elicited a hell of a lot of hate speech against me. Holy moly, I fired up the whole crowd with that one. I mean, anyway, so I was just trying to be nice to the guy. Oh yeah, and then a lot of people were talking about how we need to get Fauci, put that son of a gun in jail. And I said, well done, my point exactly. We need international law to prosecute Fauci. Because, the U.S. courts aren't going to do anything to Fauci. The Democrats own all the courts. And this is another reply. I said, I've been calling for an international tribunal to try Fauci for crimes against humanity. I'm sorry, the son of a gun needs to go to jail, man. Or be executed. Well, I mean, that'd be extreme, but look at how many people are on. I mean, this is the biggest mass murder in human history. Anyway, it's just my belief. I don't believe the U.S. courts are capable of justice, and that was my comment there. Let's go down. Oh, this was a poll that I just conducted. Given the status of the United States woke military and the lack of patriotic fervor, could the United States mobilize 500,000 troops, as Russia did and may do again? And the results of the poll were 50-50. 50% of the people said yes, 50% of the people said no. Make of that what you will. I like these polls. I love Twitter. I like seeing what other people have to say. If I get a poll that's like 100% to 0, then I know I'm on the wrong side of the law, right? But 50-50, I figure 50% of the people were kind of agreeing with that sentiment. Yeah, here's one. Boy, I tell you, you get these crazy comments. Ukraine's big thrust is coming. Putin's end is near. Would someone please provide a graphic for this? I won't give the person's name. I just laugh at these, man. Some of them, I don't know. And then, oh boy, I guess I don't want to go through this because I'll get the damn video too long. But I do like all the feedback that I'm getting here. And then I am learning some things. Like sometimes I'll say something like, who the hell is Azov? Or not, Igor? I think it was Igor or somebody. And man, these people said, I can't believe you don't know who this person is and you're giving commentary on the Ukraine war. Oh, no, I don't know everything. I'm sorry, people. I can't follow everything. Let's see. And then, of course, this is the last one. I'll finish up. And this was to some guy named Frank. And I can say his name Frank because there's many Franks in the world, right? And I said, I'm not sure what you mean. He was talking about how the news. And I said, I get a lot of news from RT and Indian television and Pakistan and other places. I said, but that you can't find in the Western propaganda news media like, CNN or MSDNC or ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox News, the BBC, the Telegraph. I mean, that's all just, I said, they just tell mostly spin and lies. I mean, what are you going to trust the Western media? I mean, that's why people are so freaking stupid. All right, that's it for the video. You guys, peace out, stay free. You can run on for a long time. Run on for a long time. Run on for a long time. Sooner or later, God's gonna cut you down. Sooner or later, God's gonna cut you down. Go tell that globalist liar, that Democrat idiot writer, that rhino rambler, that nuclear war gambler, that backbiting U.S. politician. Sooner or later, God's gonna cut you down. Sooner or later, God's gonna cut you down.